Apart from my desire to become a vet, there was a darker reason why I wanted to avoid having to go to the local secondary school. And that was because there were some girls there who had bullied me quite badly in primary school. And I really couldn't face them, and especially not the painful gossip that they used to love to spread. And so I pleaded with God that He would make a way for me to go anywhere else but there, even to the extent of going to the far end of the town to the comprehensive school, if it really was not possible for me to get into the grammar school. But as I mentioned last week, God opened the way for me against all odds, in fact, to get into the grammar school. And so I was spared that ordeal that I most feared. Now, once those bully girls left my primary school, everything changed for me. I felt free to come out of my shell and to start taking creative initiatives. Thanks to my mother, I had a great love of nature and quite a good knowledge about it too. And so I got the idea of holding a quiz for the school on nature. And I was brave enough to put this to my teacher, who gave me the go-ahead to do it. Now, thinking about it, I must have had to write out the questions by hand because this was well before the time of photocopiers and so on. And I even bought the book, which would be the prize for the winner, from my own pocket money. And then I became the leader of a rebellion. For back then, girls had to do needlework while boys did woodwork. Now, my dad was incredibly practical. He built a very large shed in our garden that served as his carpentry workshop, where he was making a model sailing boat for me and my brother. And I loved watching him shape the wood and helping him with the sanding. To me, woodwork was thrilling and needlework was boring. I felt so strongly about this unfairness that I persuaded every single girl in my class to boycott the needlework class and sign a petition demanding to do woodwork. Now, I can't imagine what trouble I would have got in if that old headmistress was still at our school. But my class teacher tackled this by giving us an ultimatum. Either get on with the needlework or write an essay putting the case for why girls should be allowed to do woodwork. Well, of course, nobody liked writing essays, so all the other girls gave in and went back to the class. Only my best friend and I refused to back down and wrote the essay. Well, we didn't change the rules that day, but I like to think we paved the way for future generations to have more choice. Now, when I look back at that young girl standing up for her classmates, I am reminded of the story of Moses. Moses acted prematurely in his own strength to defend his own people, but they turned against him and he had to flee into the desert. He spent years in hiding, during which he lost his self-confidence and became aware of his own inability and weakness. But that is exactly where God meets us. When we realize we cannot do it on our own, God raises us up. He took a fearful, stuttering Moses and gave him the courage to confront a powerful king in the form of Pharaoh. And in a much smaller way, he took a shy, bullied schoolgirl and gave her the creative spark and boldness to stand up against an unfair rule. If you are feeling small, hidden, or completely aware of your own limitations today, remember Moses. God isn't looking for perfection. He just needs your willingness. When you feel at your weakest, that is precisely when his strength can shine through you. This is Junia, and I will continue my story next week. Same time, same place.